The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Check, check. Mic check. Let me see how I'm doing here. I've gotten green bars. Thank you. Awesome, awesome, awesome. How's everybody doing? Everybody have a good weekend? Not long enough. I always say that. They're too short. I'm lobbying for the 4-day week and the 3-day weekend. And, they could, look, I love doing what I do and whatever, but the people that say, oh, if you're excited, Gary V especially, I love him, but, oh, if you're excited for the weekend, something's wrong with you. I'm like, no, that's just my time for balance, that's all. Doesn't mean I don't go hard. Doesn't mean I don't do stuff while I'm on my weekends. It's just, yeah, having a life, right? Yeah, I mean, exactly. You got to have time to drive the Lambo around. It does no good parked in the garage. Exactly. Let me tell you, who here, let me see who's here. Let me look real quick. Anybody here from Miami? Yeah, I hadn't been down there in a long time. And when we were there a couple weeks ago, literally, it's a couple things. I think I mentioned it that was really bizarro. Was drivers there have no patience. I mean, the light is not even green yet, and they're on their horns. Every intersection, all directions, all the time. Yes, I did, Aaron. Spent a whole afternoon with them, noon to 6 o'clock. Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, we were just laughing, walking around. It's like, light's not even green. It's like, beep, beep, you don't have time to move your foot from the brake to the gas pedal, and the guy behind you beeping already. Yes, I am, John. I'll be there. In fact, I will announce today that we're going to have a Disruptive Traders trading event, probably the 23rd and 22nd and 23rd, or 23rd and 24th of May, 23rd, 24th, in Atlanta. But anyway, getting back to getting back to Miami and not having time to drive your Lambo, literally, no exaggeration, where we were downtown and to the north end with the mansions and the condos just got bigger and more expensive as we drove north. But every other car, a Lambo, a Ferrari, a McLaren, a Rolls, a Bentley, a Lotus. It was unbelievable. There is no question when you visit that area that you would question there's unlimited abundance in the world. Nobody's asking questions over a microphone. It's all typed in, Michael. And by design, GoToWebinar. And I do not prefer chats where you can see each other's questions, because that just leads to chit chat between traders and misdirection, which I don't like as a presenter. So that's just the way GoToWebinar is built. It's built for instructors to teach, not for social chit chat. There are other places you could go for social chit chat. Oh, I might come back down and do something in Miami. We liked it down there. Oh, I do repeat the relative ones. You type in the chat box. That's how you respond. That's how you ask questions. What would the trading event consist of? Depends on how long I have. It's my understanding, based on a preliminary schedule I saw, that those that are interested in doing something with another event that's coinciding with that time frame won't have any obligation until at least 5:30 that night. So I would probably end the 24th at about 3:30, starting early in the morning, and then starting maybe midday on the 23rd, maybe morning for those that come in early. So it would be Thursday and Friday. And yes, down under too. I got some teams blowing up down there. If you're on the attendee list, it doesn't tell me how you come in. So actually it does sometimes. I don't know. Sometimes it says web, but that's how everybody gets in. Actually, I have a slight agenda for today. Yeah, I still got Europe on my mind too, but all right, let me back down here. Now, if you can't hear anything, it's because your sound's not on. Check, 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 check. Everybody hear me okay? Well, I don't know why it keeps doing this. All right. Yeah, I had an offer to go do Eastern Europe, but not the time for me just yet. But I want to do that at some point because I've got unknown family there. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what I want to talk about today. So today is not necessarily the day for beginners. So if you're a beginner, you can observe. But I'm just telling you, this is a little bit more intermediate to advanced. So I'm going to be unteaching and teaching at the same time based on circumstance, which is what happens. So remember, I say you can't have the 50,000 page PDF from day one because it'll blow you out of the water. But you can work your way slowly through it, and at some point you're going to come back and unlearn something that you learned before, and then learn another way to do it, or a better way, or the real way. And then even after that, that'll happen. Now that's not necessarily magically by design. That's just the nature of learning when you have a ton of information to hear or to see. Yep, you got it, Manuel. All right. Excuse me. So we're looking here at the harmonic scanner provided by forexharmonicpatterns.com. If you don't have a scanner and you're interested in one, forexharmonicpatterns.com. Don't pay attention to this up here in the left-hand corner. If you go there, you're going to bypass my link. It doesn't cost you any more to use my link, but it will cost you potentially in having higher support fees later on if you opt for advanced training or some of my courses. So it doesn't cost you any more. You just save some money. All right, so Fitchporks. Absolutely got to have your Fitchporks. So today we're going to use a little thinking. I know that's a strange concept for many of you. Just kidding, just kidding. Not really, not really. All right, so let's look at this mess we have on the screen. So we have a Gartley, a cipher, a butterfly, a crab. So we got some stuff on here that, you know, may or may not help us. Let's look at this, the blue and this kind of gold colored fork. And the reason we want to look there is because we can see that as of late, price is kind of coming down. If you're not seeing the screen, you're not looking in GoToMeeting. You have to find your window and open it up. Not seeing anything on screen, not seeing it on screen. Everybody else can see the screen. I've got a monitor, not as in a computer monitor, but there's a facility for the admins to see what you guys see. And I'm seeing my chart, so I know it's coming through, and everybody else is confirming that. Okay. So if you're not seeing it, it's because you don't have the right thing open. Yep, this is a live chart. This is not a screenshot. I'm in the scanner at this point, live. So, now, a couple things to pay attention to here as we look at the scan, just so everybody understands. Upper left-hand corner, this is the Euro USD, and this is a daily chart. And it's just a teaching example, which is why we're here. Oh, I had to log out and log back in. Sorry about that. Give a few just a second. So, glad you all can do time translations and conversions. We did have our daylight saving time switch here over the weekend, which came up quite unexpectedly to me as well. I didn't realize until about a week ago we were having it. I usually post something and I just totally forgot, spaced it out this weekend. All right, so your iPhone knows it all. Yes, it does, doesn't it? Right? So we got a couple things going on here. For opportunities for something pointing down, we have at the bigger scale, now while that says A, that's an overprint. right? That's an overprint because there's really an X under it. For the gold scan. So we have the XA of the gold fork, of the gold scan, excuse me, that can be an XA. And we also see that there is a line coming off here, which we could then use to connect the XA to the top with the C and still have the correct downward pointing fork. If we put the bottom on the D, we'll still have an OK pointing downward fork. So the XA at this level remains viable. What about the CD of the other fork, of the blue fork? So here's our C, here's our D. Well, from a technical standpoint, it would be viable, except you'll note that that's where the D was, right there. And we can obviously see price has surpassed it. So the D, remember the D doesn't move. This is not the IML scanner. The D is painted and stays where it is, which is a calculated point. The D does not float from a harmonic scan perspective. So it's not going to hit the high point. But so I'm not sure if you meant that in the context of the scan or if you meant just that in that particular case, the pattern went past the calculated point for the D, but the scanner left the scan in the correct place. So what happens here is you evolve scan/pitchfork eyes when you do a volume of trades. So I can draw a parallel, and I'm going to use my drawing tool for this, so it ain't going to be perfect because this drawing tool doesn't allow me to do copy and paste, just freehand lines. So if I did an XA off the gold fork, now I'm going to try and parallel that line the best I can. I'm going to get something where the upper and the lower parallels look something like that. And I go, well, that's pretty cool, except I'm noticing something with my eyeballs. And what I'm noticing is this area here is a little short of the midpoint of that being the line. You know, I have several lines I could draw in parallel that I'm looking at. So what I want you to remember that we say is if you have a fork and you're drawing a Charlie Delta line, we know the C in the Charlie is set. The D, we can put a fork there using the CD until the D gets violated. And what do we say about that then? See, don't let your RAS get confused with just this XA of the gold fork. Don't let your RAS filter all the way to just that. And don't immediately rule out the blue scan because the D was violated. Let's pretend the gold scan wasn't there, but the blue scan was. What that means is we would have our C and our D would not be here we don't care about it being there. We're doing pitchforks. We would want the swing high. Am I making sense? Am I making sense? Give me an amen, brother. Oops, got to turn that Magno tool off. Woe is me. Because I bet that when I align it with the C of this scan, we get a fork, a resultant fork that gives us a hit on the D with the quad. Now remember that D is not there. The line is the line is there, but the D is not. The D is there only now because that's where price is. The D is going to move to the right as price continues to move down and goes east. No, you're not going to. Don't confuse the scan with the forks. We're using the scans to set the forks, but we're not going to put a swing. We're not going to put the fork on an incorrect swing. First of all, that's in the middle of a live candle, and so there's no swing there to put it on at D. We always say that's why going from Quickfire to Charlie Delta, we said Charlie Delta is much more friendly because we don't have to trade the D. We'll get trades off the scan. Don't worry about the D. Let the D settle. So a pitchfork requires a swing low and a swing high. Just because the D is the scan is invalidated or breached, okay, we're not using the real D. We're using the swing high, which is the correct place to draw your fork from. Well, that's not a median. That's a Fibonacci down there. It's a quad. So that's the first thing to note. Oops. This is not IML scanner. Oh, okay. Right. So remember, technically, you can make the D the hit as well and see if it serves you. It may give you something. You know, there are hits. And so either one may end up holding, but the D's not finished yet. This would be using the D in a cheating sense, assuming it was hit right there. But the bottom line is, for the scan, don't worry so much about trades we identify right here. The lesson is all about, you have options here for swings. What's going to give you the most favorable swing? The CD is ruled out because the D got breached. So you either go XA for the gold fork, or you go C, technically A, for the correct fork for this swing here. Because it didn't end there, it kept on going. Didn't mean to do that either. Now, look at that. Let me see if I have this in the right place. It's close, but no cigar. We do get a couple of median hits, and we get this hit here, which is pretty nice. Aligning the what is XA, it looks like A to A, but that's an X. The XA with the C at the top, we do get this nice hit here, which in this case is a nice energy bounce hit because it's using the scans. Yeah, it's no different. It's just a scan on here, and so you just align the points on your TradingView charts and use the TradingView tool to copy it over. All right, let's move on. Got a couple other fun examples. So that was just a review of, don't get lost in where you are. Keep your RAS open because, a lot of you are used to using the D only, and there's no D swing here. There's a point where it was supposed to have been, and it didn't stop there, and that's mid-candle. Depends on what, I have all my patterns selected as acceptable to draw. So I can show them all. All will be painted for me, better said. I want to take a run to Bitcoin for a second. And see if I can remember this. I'm going to scan down for, wait a second. If I could type. Yeah. And I'm going to scan down for Bitfinex as my preferred source. Now, looky what we got here. does it matter which broker you use on the IML scanner? So you have scanner choices at IML, you have scanner choices here with Forex harmonic patterns. So here's the deal. I would recommend using a broker feed that closely matches your feed. If you can't find one, then just stay with the same broker all the time. Stay with the same broker feed all the time. Don't worry about your scan not showing up and another buddy of yours has one because he's using a different feed. That situation will reverse sometimes. You'll have one and he doesn't have one. Don't worry if you both have a scan, but the swing points are off a couple pips. Don't worry about it. Harmonics and Fibonacci work on the price points that are on your chart. And while that seems like, what? Just trust me. So if we take 500 scans and draw a Charlie Delta pitchfork on each one of them, and between you and, let's say, 2 other trading partners, sometimes your scans overlap, sometimes you have different ones, sometimes you have one and they don't, sometimes they have one and you don't. But we take 500 scans on a given pair. At the end of the year, I would venture to say you're probably going to be within 5% of each other by total pips. Don't get all riled up by it. Yes, they're range-based. Well, they're not only good until 1700, they're valid after 1700. Today is the correct way of saying it. They're range-based trades based on yesterday's open, high, low, close. Just like all range-based support and resistances. Camarilla lines, pivot points, DP30, etc. No, the IML scanner works in another way. The IML scanner tells you when it's found a pattern, period. So you have to go to the various broker feeds and see what patterns they found. You have to go to, I want to look at 15-minute scans, and then it shows you all the 15-minute scans that it has. This scanner, because it produces so many scans, you could just type in a pair and then cruise through the time periods for that pair. Yes, if you have valid support and resistance, if you have valid vendor support and resistance lines, here are the blue lines, with a fork, and the lines are meant for today or today after, then they're valid to use. Just like any other INS, just like harmonic targets, and just like Fibonacci, you will often see reverse compliance. Because what are these lines based off of? Yesterday's open, high, low, close. So today's lines are based on Fibonacci from yesterday. And what do we know about Fibonacci? It can be predictive of the future before the run has been made, i.e. it creates reverse compliance. Meaning I might be able to come in here and look at this swing here, the XA in this move, and see this is a perfect 50% hit, and then go back in time and see all the places where that had been hit. Like right here and right here. So those are reverse compliance points on this being a 50% hit. So it's going to be true with your support and resistance, even though this isn't valid until after 1500. Boom. All right, so a couple things going on here at this level. First of all, we can take that off for now. First of all, if we bring it back down to a smaller size, you can see something in general. So pay attention to price action. We had a pretty substantial drop, and now we have this thing going. Geez, Steve. We have a pretty substantial drop, and now we have price. Wow, it just is like following the grooves. We have price doing a little bit of a consolidation. It's a correction. So we may, especially since there were previous lines there, we may look at this with a BS fork, and I mean before the scans, nothing else. We may look at that as a fork. There's a swing high going to a swing low. Now it's a retracement swing high, but we could still use it as a swing high for this fork. And we can futz around with it. Maybe use the bottom, this C as a bottom, and see what gives us, we can't obviously go down because that would be facing the wrong direction. Maybe we come up and just use the other D as a bottom. We can do various things, but it doesn't look like I'm getting tons of what I want. So I don't know about a best fit fork, or a before scan fork, excuse me. Now you'll also notice that in terms of this first scan, so just pay attention to what's on the charts. The information's right in front of your eyes. So if we take that global picture that I was talking about, we see the drop, and then we can just kind of put our own eyes on it, and we kind of see, a general correction coming up. We can also look at this with more discerning eyes, closer in, and say, well, we had that swing high to swing low. We have this swing low to swing high. Remember, all the way back when you were learning pitchforks, draw every swing. Every time you have a reversal, draw a pitchfork. So what about this XA? If I look at that, I can see for the most part the price is moving down. And I can see that this point here is a little lower than this X. And so I can actually have this XA off this scan serve as a BS scan to the second scan. Does that make sense, what I just said? We can do an XA here, but that equals a BS for this scan. Okay? Let me turn my magnet tool on. Now, remember our general rules. For that scan, okay, for scan number 1, normally we're going to arrange the CDA, the XA to touch the D or to touch the C. We can't do the C because that would result in it pointing upward, and that's not valid. We can come down, and there we go, but the trouble is, So what if we just forgot that it was XA? What if we just realized it was a swing low to swing high, and we want to use it to capture potentially the D in this next move, and so we can just use points there to see what goes on. And oh, looky, that XA ends up encompassing the XA off of Fibonacci bounce to the top of the pitchfork. Oh yeah, hold on. Now it's on it. Ah, see what I did? I got to take that off so it doesn't bounce around on me. There we go. Doesn't change our reality. It just makes it, now the A is off. Lordy, lordy, lordy. And again, it doesn't change our reality. I know it doesn't because I did this earlier today. So. So when you can contain the X and the A of a previous, of a forthcoming scan, that's pretty cool. But that doesn't mean that's where you have to put it. Just so you know that. Just because you got A touch, don't let your RAS jump to conclusions. You should still play around with it. Maybe the C should be the top, of that scan. Who knows? But the fact that the X and the A is 100% proportionate to the first X and A, it's scaled, is kind of interesting. And you do have a couple of what before that? In reverse compliance. You have a hit, and then you have what? A pack move on the median. Draw that again. You have a hit, it goes up, it comes down, and it goes back up. You have a pack move. This passed it by just a pip or two. There's the C here was a median hit. So is it cool? Or excuse me, that's not the C. It's the C of a smaller scan in there. Does it matter if you draw your own scans instead of relying on the system software? I don't know why you would want to do that. To me, that's a waste of time. Why do I want to draw my own scans? I would rather let the scanner draw its scans in volume, and then I pick the pairs I want to trade and the time periods I want to trade, rather than me going and try and make a scan up. Yeah, that's correct, but I'm not going to say that to the trader that said it. Sometimes I don't see a scan and I look for the swings, and if they match the degree radius based on the scans, sorry, I'm not going to waste my time. I mean, if that's how you want to spend your time, that's fine. I'm not going to say don't. I'm just going to say, look, I love trading and I want to get as many trades as I can get in with high probabilities. And why do I need to make up scans when there's too many here for me to trade to begin with? Why do you want to force something that requires your labor versus something that's automatic and is there for you to choose? Yeah, somebody else says work smarter, not harder. No, you copy the scans from any scanner, any web-based scanner, or any scanner, as long as you can see where it is on your new chart, on your TradingView charts. You can copy any scan using the scan drawing tool. Doesn't matter where it comes from. IML, this scanner, shoot, it could be an MT4 scanner on just as long as you see where the swings are to use the TradingView tool, put your pattern on there. We draw pitchforks here, one for brevity, and two just to test to see what's going on. You can draw the pitchforks on your TradingView charts. Well, here's the deal. I'm just going to say this the best I can. There are old paradigm systems that work. I'm not saying it's incorrect to trade in the old paradigm. I'm saying as a coach and trainer over tens of thousands of traders, I've seen traders struggle because of the attributes of the old paradigm. That doesn't mean you can't have a successful trader who teaches systems or methodologies in the old paradigm. It also doesn't mean traders can duplicate what he's doing. I know a lot of traders that when I left FX Trainer, a long time ago, that set out to do training and education. And it's a whole lot of easy to talk about a trade that you made $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 on because you got $250,000 in your trading account. But that same trade for somebody that has $1,500, the $17 that it made them isn't worth the 3 hours time they put into it. Isn't worth the sleeping up, getting up in the middle of the night to move the stop loss. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm not saying it doesn't work. What I'm saying is most traders can't make the old paradigm. Most newer traders with lower capitalization are going to burn out on the old paradigm because they don't make enough money for the time they invest. So that doesn't mean there's not a lot of training companies out there, education companies out there who have very good traders who are training and educating. And that what they're trading is wrong or bad. I never said that. Never said that. Won't ever say that because I have friends that do that. What I'm saying is, as a new trader, the return you get on those trades for the time you put in for lower capitalization is generally not worth it. And you further have to take that down to who is the trader. If it's an American trader and he or she wants to stay in a regulated U.S. account and not trade with an offshore account, if they're in a trade for multiple days on a swing trade in an old paradigm trade, that prohibits them, even once they get past break even, because the margin is not returned until the trade is closed. So even though they may be in break even temporarily, they're not allowed to open other trades because they don't have the leverage to do it. So it doesn't just come down to what works. It's what works for my situation, my degree of capitalization, my degree of patience, the degree of patience in my spouse or significant other who's trying to support me the best they can. That doesn't occupy 2 or 3 days of the week, so I can't trade anything else, and then that trade ends up, I quit it because it doesn't go anywhere, or I get stopped out, or even if I get to a take profit point because of my capitalization, the size of the stop loss, it just doesn't bring a return that's worthy of 3 to 4 days of my time. Opportunity costs of trading other things that could have given me 3, 4, 5, 10 trades in that same 3 or 4 days. Yeah. Well, I don't want to say, because, like I said, here's the problem is a lot of traders have invested in other programs and have invested in other stuff, and I get that. I did the same thing at the beginning. And, you don't want to feel This is an ego thing, just being honest. You don't want to feel that you made bad choices. And you didn't make bad choices at the time. It's just as time moves on, they're not good choices. You know, several years ago, I took my kids to see, in Virginia, I took them to see Monticello. It's right outside Charlottesville, Virginia. It's the home of Thomas Jefferson, you know, President of the United States, guy that founded University of Virginia. And this house is on top of this hill in the mountains around Charlottesville, Blue Ridge. And, you know, I think back to those days, you know, how all these guys, you know, would gather in Philadelphia or gather in Williamsburg or gather in Boston or New York for various meetings and stuff. And I remember the drive up the hill to get to Mount Vernon, to Monticello, and realized, you know, when we were talking to some of the people there, that for Thomas Jefferson to get in his horse and buggy just to get to the bottom of the hill was literally the same amount of time I could drive from Charlottesville and Mount Monticello and get to Washington, D.C. Now, is the horse and buggy that Jefferson used to get from the top of Monticello at the top of the hill to the bottom, is that obsolete? Absolutely not. There's people today who still use horse and buggies. It's not obsolete. It's antiquated. New stuff has come along, and it just means the new stuff is better for that situation. But it's still valid. So for those traders who invested in schooling and education and training companies in the old paradigm, and be it 2, 3, 5 years later, they discover the new paradigm, just because they spent time and money doesn't mean that's what they have to use. Oh, from Charlottesville to D.C., 165 miles, something like that. Yeah, the same's true, depending on your field, the same's true for college degrees, People who went to school, 10 years ago, sometimes as recently as 5 years ago, depending on what they studied, they find themselves in their own antiquated environment. There's people doing things without college degrees that are making 2 times, 10 times what they're making. So the problem with it is, while it can give you more perspective, the challenge as an individual, as a human being, because we're all humans, the challenge is we have this part of our physiology called ego. And ego, remember, it has its own programming. We don't, we need to be aware of it. We can't control it. We just need to be aware of it so we can act around it. But ego wants us to feel good about what we've done in the past. And so for those people that got training, purchased training, and spent time, I was talking to a young lady on the phone the other day, and we had an extensive conversation about this. And she's already realized the year and a half she spent studying something else, which is a somewhat popular strategy in the old paradigm, and people cycle through those trainings quite a bit, and she spent time and money. She said, once I listened to you and the math, there's no comparison. Not on the technical side, not on the financial side, not on the head game side. Now, she's a little bit of a different intellect, and she can assimilate all that, and she's very awake, as I would say, and she just understands that's the price of doing business at the time she got involved. And now it's like, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, new paradigm. All right, so the lesson here is, and I'm not saying, look, I'm not saying here that the CD from the first scan and all right. So I'm not saying that the CD and the XA from the blue scan are not valid to use. Didn't say that at all. Nor did I say the XA and the CD of the gold scan are invalid to use. I'm just suggesting don't let your RES get all wrapped up and dismiss the fact that I have a second scan, which means there could be a pitchfork in front of it. It may be that first swing that we looked at. That may be viable. That can encompass the second scan. So that is a BS that's viable. The BS formed by the XA on the blue scan just gets my juices going because that's a Fibbo-based, it's a pattern. And the Fibonacci's in a pattern are more powerful than the Fibonacci's that exist in swings that aren't part of a pattern. That's just it. No, that's not what I said. You can go here and look at any pair and see the scans for that pair at multiple time periods. If you like the pound and you like the pound yen and you like the pound dollar, then go look for scans at the pound yen and pound dollar. If you're a newer trader, we like starting with 15 minutes for all the reasons that we've talked about historically. That's where we start people. But you can look at 5 minute, you can look at, or 15 minutes, you can look at 30 minute, you can look at 1 hour, you can look at 4 hours. Not as a brand new trader, but as somebody that's scaling up once you understand forks and scans. So there's an abundance of scans. And all I was trying to say is rather than drawing your own, for what reason? Why? The more you do, guys, the more you introduce multiple sets of RES. And as I was teaching my private traders this morning, the more RES sets you have working, the more each one of them needs huge volumes of trades in order to get flow going, in order to get the subconscious flow processing instead of trying to be a mechanical, conscious-based trader with your little post-it note checklist, for which you'll never be successful long term. Your subconscious mind processes, several 100,000 times faster than your conscious mind. And you can program your subconscious mind with volumes of trades doing the same thing. Let me ask you a question. Let me take it away from Forex because sometimes people just, it doesn't register. People learn differently. So let me give you an example. What do you think would be easier to do? Now, I'm not talking about some 1-3% gifted person. I'm talking about the average schmo, you and me, okay? Or schmoette if you're a girl. Which would be easier? Learning French by studying it for a year, or being ambitious and trying to learn 7 languages in the same year? Right? So my question is, reduce your trading to that. Don't try and constantly be learning 7 languages until you master one of them. Once you master French, then you move on. Oh my gosh, in high school, we had to have foreign language, and I took 2 years of French, and I didn't want to go any higher because the only teacher teaching French 3 I absolutely despised, and I wasn't going to be stuck another semester with that woman. But some girls that I knew that I was chasing were starting Spanish, so I said, okay, junior year, I'll start Spanish. And I was blown away how easy Spanish was. It's one of the, romance languages as well, and all the words are pretty much the same. Yeah, Latin-based. Aren't they called romance languages? I think so. So, picking up Spanish, I did it at twice the rate because I already knew my French. Just now my name was Diego instead of ATN. But Catherine was Catherine, and boy, I was hot for Catherine. Okay. So, moral of the story with this particular grouping, open your RAS to what it is you're doing. That's not learning multiple RASs. The RAS is about being open to what swings are creating what potentiality for me. The RAS is not about being locked in to, I have a scan here, CDXA. Oh, I have a scan here, CDXA. This scan's passed. I might as well do the CDXA on this one. Remember, if this scan exists and there's swings in front of it, whether there's a scan here or not, you should investigate them. If there's a scan there or not, but you see this price action creating the scan over here, when there's swings in front of it, you should be putting forks on those 2 swings. And it just so happens this one has a little bit of favor because it ends up being a scan. All I remember in French 1, I had this, my teacher, her name was Mrs. Cruiser, and the only time she ever called my name is when I was not doing what she wanted, or misbehaving by flirting or whatever. And it was always, Etienne, Etienne. And everybody in the class learned that she only said Etienne when Steve-O here was doing something wrong. So outside of the classroom, if any of the girls in that class saw me clowning around or doing something, they go, Etienne, Etienne. It was like, I got played, man. That teacher had me marked and everybody was following her lead. It almost became a verb, don't do an ATN. Don't ATN it. All right, anyway. Let's look at one more good example. All right. So, yeah, you don't want to be remembered as a verb, Since we got some Aussies in here, let's go ahead and check out the Aussie. Yeah, I think I was on FXCM because that's what I usually use. So, once again, let's pay attention to the fact okay. Thought that was right. You can almost always tell when they don't use sometimes when they don't use logic in the swings there, but you can't tell. It could be an expired pattern too, but that's a cipher. So here's the moral of the story. Again, the reason I picked this one third is because we have the same kind of thing. Where is current price? Well, if you've been around trading more than a day or two, you know price is going eastbound. So here we are, current price. We also notice that we have a scan here. And we have data before the scan. Don't let a harmonic pattern or a cipher, because ciphers really aren't harmonic patterns, don't let your RAS with that affect your thinking. What you should say is, okay, I have the opportunity here for the Charlie Delta isn't valid yet because the C isn't set. We got a pattern that's still working its way. The XA is valid. XAC at least is valid. It'll be pointing down, so that might be something I look at. I can also look at something before and see if it makes sense. If I do that, then I want to look at the bigger things first. In other words, I could rule out on this thing on the left, I can rule out the XA because that's not the biggest swing. I can rule out the CD because that's not the most complete or biggest swing. So there's a hybrid created, and it's as if the scan, or that purple scan, doesn't even exist. And that is going to be here, the XC. This is not violating what we do in our trading because there's a scan after this that we're looking at. So I know we had some people today talking about BFs in a scan, or BCs in a scan or whatever, and I'm like, don't waste your time, Just go find another CD or XA if that scan is isolated. In this particular case, since this scan is over with, we're not worried about that scan, but we are worried about the swings that could create a fork that somehow might be able to help us with this scan or price action over here, right? So that's why in this particular case, the XC is perfect, and it's the better swing to use over here if we're looking at price coming down. It doesn't mean you can't draw a big fork, a big swing, let's say, from this C, this high, all the way down to here, and see what it gives you. That would serve as a BS fork too for a price. It's just, you can tell price is going to be in the middle third of the channel, and so it's like, why would I do that? Right? Because you can do that. It's a setting for what scans you want on the screen. So you can keep past scans on the screen. And think of the advantage of that, not the disadvantage. Damocles' sword, the glass is half full, not half empty, right? Blah, 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 blah. If there's a harmonic pattern, as we've said, there's something to be said about the swings. Even if it fails, even if it got breached, there's something to be said, because up until C is generated because there's several consecutive patterns that form to give us the C. So C is still a significant swing even though the pattern fails. Yeah, same reason. So, IML scanner as a default, it takes them away after a while. If it had breached this much and it went past the stop, usually they're gone. Not always, but sometimes. If you didn't quickly have your XA drawn on it, you'd lose it because you wouldn't know where. So anyway, here's a great opportunity to look at this swing, which is covered by the XA of this cipher. Turn on my magnet. And we put that swing on the A. We get some good touches. May or may not hold out. Doesn't give us any hope for the D. But we got some touches. Can you move it around to do something else? Can you make it a swing low, swing high, back to the previous swing high? There would be a perfect traditional fork. But in terms of that new scan, it doesn't really give us a lot of help. So, if we use the swing before that big candle, there you go. So, what does this candle look like to you? I want to see what people think. If I could draw an arrow. What does that candle look like to you? Because you probably have cipher patterns turned off. That's a cipher pattern. It's not a harmonic scan. Doesn't it look out of place? Why would price be descending down, having left a high, and a scalper wick goes higher than the previous high? I'm talking about the candle that has the arrows to it in the top left corner. Why would a scalper wick? Yes. Wow. Nobody's looked at it. Maybe I missed it. This is an RAS question. All right. What if if you're an old paradigm trader, this is a daily chart, if you're an old paradigm trader and price comes here and goes up here and it starts reversing and you have something that tells you the enter of the trade, where are you putting your stop loss? If you're trading this way, where are you putting your stop loss? At that time, right here, right? On the other side of that high. So what now does this candle look like to you? Yes, somebody's hunting a stop loss. That looks exactly like when a broker is hunting the stop loss. They want to take you out because they know price is moving like this. And they don't want you to stay in your sell. So, in terms of that, oh my gosh, new traders are like, what? What do you mean hunting a stop loss? In terms of Fibonacci, is this a real candle? Is that a real high? It's not. It's an artificial high. It wasn't a natural price move seeking anything. I'm not saying that moves like that won't occur naturally sometimes. It's just in this circumstance from a swing high coming down to go back and exceed the swing high with a big scouter wick. See, the reason I say that is if there was a point, if there was a price point, think about this logically. If there was a price point here that was attractive to price, most of the time then, when price got up to that point there, it would have stretched the rest of the way to tag it. It's just very unusual for price to be shy of that line and then turn around and come back up and reach out to that line, exceeding this high. It's just where I'm not saying it doesn't occur. I'm not saying it didn't occur here. I'm just saying in this particular situation, I would almost bet that that's the case. Now, is that a little after the fact wisdom? Yeah. Does that make me cheating or whatever? No, I'm just teaching some wisdom. And why do I say that? Because in the formation of my traditional pitchfork that I would like to draw, and I have a swing low, and I have a swing high, that means I go back to the previous swing high, which naturally would be here, but that doesn't give me anything in my traditional pitchfork. Yet when I lower it to this point right here, all of a sudden I'm getting beautiful hits on my pitchfork, including a boundary hit up here, including a median hit 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 here. And so that little bit of alignment all of a sudden gives me this nice, natural, traditional Andrews fork, which is getting hits. You know, and we could dig deeper into the quads and the ox and, you know, find more hits that are pretty aligned. And so when I see that and I say I put it here on what probably was the natural high, we get this alignment, which is, you know, I won't say perfection, but it's eye-opening, which probably means this was fake. It was artificial. Yeah, lots of news that day. So a question again about candle patterns. I will say this yet again. There's nothing wrong with candle patterns. Candle patterns hold true. Unfortunately, candle patterns are like everything else in the old paradigm, they scale up, I won't say exponentially, but linearly in terms of slush as you go from 1 minute to day. So what do you need for a candle pattern to validate you need another candle? And the distance between the high or the low and the reaction of that next candle is called slush. And in trading circles, you normally have to cover that swing high or swing low. Which means what? In terms of the new paradigm, you miss the move. You've got to have your, look at the scale here. So you very well may have, you very well may have caught the move, but it's an old paradigm move. So you got your 100 pip stop loss. Not saying the candle patterns aren't good. The reality is when you look at candle patterns, and this is why you want to learn multiple time frame analysis. You want to be able to drop down to lower levels. You look at a candle on a 1 minute chart and you have an evening star or morning star. Normally that star is that candle pattern is confirmed within 2 to 4 pips, which is tradable. An evening star on an 8-hour chart, on a daily chart, isn't tradable in the new paradigm. So you've got to let it go. Unless you want to trade in the old paradigm. If you're waiting for confirmation on your candle pattern, you're not going to get anywhere as a new paradigm trader. You're stuck with stops that have to cover the high and the low in the candle pattern. Yeah, I keep saying candle pattern, cattle pattern, cattle panda, pitchfork and cattle panda. Thanks, Ron. So this is another example of it's not wrong. I'm not saying candle patterns are not accurate ways of trading. They are. They just include, as you scale up, big slash stops. From a candle perspective, there are dates in the calendar where you're going to have the largest movements. First of the week of a new month. In this case, this is the first week of the year. It's Thursday, according to my calendar. Are what Fibber related? I can't. T-E-H-Y. Oh, they. When you say Fibbo related, are they measurable by Fibbo and standard things we would look at? Yeah, they'll hit. They will absolutely hit. It's just traders know that's when the big moves are coming. Well, that's when traders know there's a propensity for that to be the bigger move of the week, the bigger move of the month, etc. I actually learned that a long time ago, probably 12, 13 years ago from Rob Booker. I went to I actually caught him live in a seminar. Yeah, I mentioned lunar cycles this morning as well. Everybody laughed until I said, yeah, well, in day trading, That's where your RSI 14 comes from. It's half of a lunar cycle. That's where the default is always 14. All right. So we looked at 3 patterns today, and they were a little bit unusual because they had other circumstances. And all I'm trying to do is get you to not be so rigid. Don't let RAS, and I'm not trying to be talking conflict or hypocritical, talking out of 2 sides of my mouth, as they say. It's okay to focus on one thing. It's okay to say, I want to train my RAS. But don't train it in such a way that when there's stuff that you already know, you forget. You already know if there's a scan and there's data in front of it, you should be looking at a best fit. A before scan. You already know if you have a scan and the D is breached, or in case of the IML scanner, the D slips, when it finally turns, we don't use the entry line as the place to draw the pitchfork. We draw the place where the IML scanner shows D ended. In terms of the Forex harmonic patterns scanner, it's going to be the actual swing. The swing high or the swing low. Because pitchforks are based on swings. We're just overlaying it on the scan. The scan doesn't dictate the pitchfork. The pitchfork's overlaid on the scan. Right? There's not that much more, Michelle. Oh, there you go. Pi Day is Thursday, 3/14. That's right. All right. So anyway, I had hoped to be out of here in an hour, and here we are an hour and a half. Of course, it was a few minutes of chit-chat to get going. But hopefully we got something of value out of it. Get your buddies here. Was this session worth the $20 you paid for it? Oh, wait a second. It was free. So anyway, hopefully you got something of value. Keep coming back. You never know. You never know. It's like your next good self-development book. Sometimes there's just a bounty of stuff in one book, and sometimes it's just 1 or 2 tidbits. And yet those 1 or 2 tidbits may someday be worth thousands of dollars to you, right? So anyway, we'll be back on Wednesday for another day of Scans, Forks, and Fibos and Disruptive Traders TV. Thanks for being here. Remember, life can be short and sometimes even shorter than that. So for those people you care and love, let them know you care and love them. I love you guys for carving out time, showing support by being here, and we'll keep trying to bring you value as the weeks and months move forward. Y'all have a great night. See you Wednesday. See you in Facebook land. Pay attention to the group because that's where we have announcements. Y'all take care.